Kerry Washington, no, get it together. Hello, lovely people. Welcome to my virtual couch. Happy Friday to ya. So I did a live, y'all. I did a live last week. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I was very nervous. I've never done a live before. I had some technical glitches, but it's fine. It was my first live. I'm gonna try, and I'm working towards doing lives about once a week. I'm not there yet, but I just wanted to dip my toe in the YouTube pool. So it wasn't so bad. It's just I'm learning what to do the next time for the live. Anyway, so my last video was a live, and the video before that, I talked about seasonal depression. So make sure you check it out. As the seasons are changing and the temperature is dropping, a lot of people suffer from seasonal depression. So that's something that I wanted to talk about. I have had a few clients talk to me about the show. I want to know if I've seen that show, Unprisoned. I'm not really like a TV watcher other than watching like my housewives. So I thought, let me check this out. Let me see what people are talking about. Now, after my sixth client asked me, hey, have you seen that therapist-based show, Unprisoned? I was like, all right, you know what? Let me watch this show. And I really like it. So I'm going to do a review on it. I've never done, show reviews before, but I do like, first of all, I like Kerry Washington. Cheers to Kerry Washington. This is actually the wine glass that she would drink off of Scandal. Scandal was my show. And if I don't know, I've talked about this in the previous video. I love Scandal so much. She used to drink red wine out of these glasses. I went and got on the wait list to get these glasses for like months. So I have a few of these. So when I reviewed this show, I got to give an ode or whatever to Kerry Washington. I absolutely love her. Did you guys hear that she said that she, in her book, that she found out that her who she thought was her biological father was not her real father? We'll discuss that another time. This is season 1, episode 1, and the title of episode 1 is Repitition, Compulsion. Now, what I love about this show is that this show is actually based off of the real life Terry McMillan. If you don't know who Terry McMillan is, please Google her. Please Google her. She is a world-renowned, critically acclaimed, New York best-time-selling author. And I think is she a TV director too? I'm not really sure. But Terry McMillan, she is responsible for Waiting to Exhale, which is a classic, and How Stella Got Her Groove Back. Please Google her. So the fact that, so when the show starts, it says this is based off of some real life crazy shit. I actually thought it was pretty funny. All right, so a little bit of background. So the season opener opens up with, I want to call her Kerry Washington, but I'm going to try and call her by her character's name. Her character's name is Paige. And Paige is a LMFT, which is a licensed marriage family therapist, okay? And the show starts out with her doing a live. And in the live, she's talking about repetition compulsion. And repetition compulsion is basically repeating painful situations that have occurred in the past over and over and over again, okay? Maybe I'll do a whole video on it, I don't know. She's got a 16-year-old son. The son looks biracial. And they haven't said where the son's father is yet. Anyway, so she's done with the live, and she's telling the son, hurry up, we gotta go. And he doesn't really want to go to school, okay? So I think this is gonna be an interesting dynamic between them. So she also tells the son that, hey, just so you know, my dad is getting out of prison. So Paige's dad, Kerry Washington, Paige's dad has been in prison for 17 years. So that's going to be interesting. And the son is like, am I supposed to call him grandpa? And she's like, I don't even know if I want you all to meet. I'm still deciding that, right? So fast forward to now she's at the prison waiting for him to come out, right? Oh, backtrack. She's also dating some white guy named Bill, and you can see she's like really like excited about him. She's always on her phone, things like that, right? So I feel like more is to develop with that. So she's at the prison, she's waiting for her dad, and every time somebody comes out of the doors, she looks up expecting to see her dad. And then I think this is going to be something that's going to be consistent, where she transitions into her younger self. And she transitions into her younger self, where her younger self is also sitting at the jail or prison. And it looked like the little girl version of hers is sitting there, and every time somebody's coming out, she thinks it's her dad. So she's clearly triggered, and she's having some flashbacks of when she used to be younger. So this kind of tells me that the dad has been a career kind of criminal, has had repeated offenses, okay? That's kind of what I'm getting. Because every time somebody comes up, she like looks up. All right. So finally he comes out, and he's like, oh my God, I got to figure out what that actor's name is. He's a very popular actor that plays the dad. Hopefully by the next episode, I'll get that too. Anyway, so he comes out and he seems very excited. He says her full name, and she's just like, Dad. So then they hug each other, and you could tell she's not sure how to feel. But Dad's really excited. She's like, you're hyped, right? So they go into another area, and it looks like they're about to take his monitor off, right? So I want to call him a transition coordinator, but his name is Malcolm. He's not the dad's parole officer, but it looks like he is somebody that's supposed to help the dad stay on the straight and narrow, or help him reintegrate into society. Okay, 17 years, long time, sure. So anyway, so Malcolm, the transition coordinator, asks them, oh, I assume you all will be living together. And they're like, absolutely not, absolutely not. So she says, I have two rules. He cannot live with her, and don't ask for money, right? You can tell that I'm about to do it. You can tell that Paige doesn't have much faith in her dad. The trust has been broken, and she thinks he's going to go back. You know, it sounds like this has been her whole life. So Malcolm is trying to convince Paige to let the dad stay with her. And he's like, look, he'll have a better chance of staying out of prison if he's connected with family, right? And Paige is like, look, sorry, can't do it, blah, blah, blah. So the dad is like, hey, I got somebody I got to stay with, somebody named Fox. And Malcolm is like, the name Fox even sounds like somebody that's like an offender, right? Anyway, so Malcolm even shades her and is like, you know, I need you to do more than hang the Black Lives Matter sign on your lawn, right? Anyway, you can tell Malcolm is kind of also feeling her in the same breath as well, too. The dad calls in and is like, oh, he's sweet on you. And Paige is like, oh, whatever. Now, the dad also catches that Paige has been on her phone talking to this Bill guy, and she seems very into the phone. And he's like, why do you keep looking at your phone? And she's like, everybody in America is looking into their phone. So keep in mind, he's been in for 17 years. Decades have passed. It's a whole new culture, a whole new dynamic, right? So the culture now is people are connected to their phones. So she's trying to tell him, hey, this is what it is, right? The dad catches it immediately, like, this Bill person. So the dad is like, are you still into white men, right? Now, we'll find out later that the dad is also into white women. And she's like, it's not my fault we moved to Minnesota. I think she said Minnesota. It's not my fault that you moved to Minnesota. So clearly that's where she gets her love for white men from. Oh, I'm going to go back. When they were talking to Malcolm, she said, well, what's different this time? You know, what's different than the last time? And he's like, because I really mean it. And I'm sure she's probably heard of that before, right? So anyway, so he says he wants to go to Starbucks, right? So they go to Starbucks, and immediately when they go to Starbucks, he starts hitting on the barista, which I thought was pretty funny. And also the dad is trying to school Paige on men, but Paige is not trying to hear it. And Paige, you need to listen, because something's off with this Bill guy. Oh, I think this is the scene where she said he's almost divorced. And I was like, ding, 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 ding. Something's off with this dude. But anyway, okay. So immediately the dad is like, nah, he's not good for you, right? The dad is trying to school her. She don't want to hear nothing that he's got to say. Then the dad tells her men make time for what they want. I'm like, oh, dad has been away for 17 years, but dad is a man. Like, dad knows what he's talking about. Paige, I wish you would listen. Anyway, so then she decides, okay, so then they go buy him some clothes, right? And she asks him, so have you thought about a job? And I'm like, Paige, he just got out. You just took him out a few hours ago. Like, give him a minute, okay? This is very overwhelming. So she's like, you need a social security card, you need a license, you need a permit, you need a da-da-da-da-da-da. He's like, Paige, whoa, whoa, whoa. And this also really talks about how the reason why when people get out of jail or prison, it's very hard to reintegrate into society because society makes it very hard. If you need a social security card, you need a driver's license. If you need a driver's license, you need a birth certificate. If you've been away for 17 years, it's hard to get a birth certificate. I mean, it's just a lot of systems and red tape that a person has to go through. And when you've been away for 17 years, and if you don't have the support system to help you through the red tape, somebody can get frustrated and be like, you know what, let me go back to what I know best, which is committing crime. That's just the reality of it, you know? Anyway, so as they're going to go buy clothes, all of a sudden she can't find him, right? She seems like she's the therapist that connects with social media. So she goes on live and she's very transparent. You know, and she's like, oh, you know, I told you all today that my dad is getting out of prison and I can't find him and he might be X, Y, Z. So she finds him with a white woman, Sandy, and you could tell that he's spitting game to her. And he's like, hey, Sandy, so we're on for lunch tomorrow. And Sandy's like, oh. So Paige pulls Sandy away and she's like, Sandy, he's very bad for you. He has no phone. He has no job. If I were you, I would walk away. I don't know what's happened in your life, but this is not a good guy for you. Like, she's just like, run from my dad and run, right? So anyway, and so funny, Sandy's like, the system's not very fair. I'm like, oh, Lord, he's been spending some game. Anyway, so when it's time to check out, and I think this is very interesting because this is something that the dad, obviously, again, been away for 17 years. She uses the self-checkout and the dad is making fun of her and the dad is like, oh, they got you working, ha, 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 ha. Which is true though. It's like when I go to the store, I use the self-checkout because it's convenient, but honestly, like, why am I working? Like, you know, and he told her next time go to like a cashier, but it's true. Like, you know, why are you working? Anyway, so she gives him an iPhone. Oh, no, before that, he's like, look, I want a relationship with you. I only have one daughter. You only have one dad. And she's like, I'm fine. I've been doing fine without you. But clearly she has not, okay? And I think we'll find out later. She gives him an iPhone. Bill calls again. He's trying to school her again. She's not trying to hear it. And then what happens? And then they decide that, I don't know if this is the dad's ex-wife or ex-girlfriend, but either way, they stop by a woman named Nadine's house, and this is somebody that apparently raised Paige, right? But Paige wants nothing to do with this woman. She's like, you go get your stuff. I'll wait in the car. And the dad is like, you sure you don't want to come? He's like, no, I like to stay far away from her, right? Okay. So the dad goes to go get his stuff, and she's been waiting in the car for a minute, and Bill calls. Now, when Bill calls, you can tell she's clearly more into him than he is into her. He's very brief. Matter of fact, gets off the phone, right? Even before he's like, okay, gotta go, bye. She's like, okay. And I'm like, girl. Kerry Washington, no, get it together. She stays in the car. She's like, what's taking him so long? So she decides to go in. Now meanwhile, they're getting reacquainted, and they're doing the do, okay? They're doing the do. So Carrie wants, see, I'm about to call Carrie. So Paige goes in and hears them doing the do. Immediately, she transitions into her younger self. The pattern that I'm noticing is that every time she's triggered or re-traumatized, she morphs into her younger self. So her younger self is like, you know, this is what it used to be. You pick yourself over me, X, Y, and Z. So they're done doing the do. She throws up. Now, I'm curious to know, maybe I'm making this up, I'm not sure, but I wonder if she has some sort of like eating disorder. I don't know. The throw up was very interesting. Or maybe she's so triggered that it disrupts her nervous system. I'm very curious to see what happens there. Okay, so of course they come out, they run into her, they're all shook. She blows up at the mom. Like, I raised you. And she calls I'm going to call him stepmom. She calls the stepmom a cluster B personality disorder. She's clearly triggered. And she goes, you should have left me with the Nelsons. And I'm like, who's the Nelsons? And I realized, okay, they're her foster parents. And she's like, speaking of foster parents, my foster sisters are calling me. So something's happening. She tells her dad, hurry up and let's go. So she brings the dad to her house and she's like, sit right here. Now, you knew he was not going to do that. And then she's like, I gotta go. I'm like, if you don't trust your father, why would you leave the man in your house and then run off? Anyway, so she goes to meet with her foster sister, who's apparently her realtor. She just closed on her home to do a toast, champagne, all that stuff. So now she's a homeowner, okay? All right. So meanwhile, back at the house, the father's just looking through her stuff. And then the son, who decided to skip school, runs into the, I guess grandfather. And he's like, oh, what are you doing here? And so they introduce themselves and the son is like looking at him like, And then the grandfather's like, shouldn't you be at school? And the son is like, oh, I tend to skip school because I know that I can see that mom's not here. And the grandfather's like, you can see where your mom is on your phone? He's like, yeah. So you start to get a hint of what kind of mom Paige is, right? Because the son says, so then the dad says, shouldn't she be doing that? And he's like, oh, she doesn't really track me. And he's like, okay. And then the dad is like, I'm hungry. Let's get something to eat. So dad looks into the fridge like, what's all this stuff? He calls quinoa. And then he's like, you don't got no turkey sandwich or something? Your mom don't make you no food? She's like, she don't cook. She kind of heats things up. So I'm kind of getting the sense that Paige is the type of mom that lets her son have free will, free reign. And the son kind of parents himself and she's just kind of there, you know? Anyway, which is interesting because if thinking that she was a foster kid, you would think that she would be very like super involved with the son, you know? But anyway, more to come with that. Anyway, so the son also asks the grandpa, so what did you do? And what's different this time, right? So everybody's asking the dad, like, what's different this time? Somehow they lose track of time and then Kerry Washington catches them. So she's pissed because her son has skipped school. And the way that she wasn't even sure if she was going to let the son meet the dad. So now she's like more pissed. So she takes the dad to see Fox, the person where he's going to stay. Now, clearly, you can tell that it's not the best environment. You can clearly tell that she sees a gun on the table. It's the hood, okay? You've got people out there just doing whatever. This dude is smoking weed, getting his hair braided. He's like, what's up? You know, it's just putting him back in a terrible situation again, okay? And she knows this. And so she just wants to get out of this. She's like, I'll call you later. She's like, maybe, I don't know. Now, when she gets in the car, you can tell she's clearly conflicted. She's like, should I go back and get him? I'm not sure. You can tell that her heart and her mind are at war, right? So she decides she's just not going to go get him. Meanwhile, Sandy, is it Sandy? No, not Sandy. What's the stepmom? Nadine. That's the stepmom saying, yeah. Nadine is texting him emojis of a peach and an eggplant. And he's like, what does this mean? So meanwhile, back at the house, Paige, I'm gonna get it straight. Paige's son is Googling his granddad, right? Trying to figure out like what he did and stuff like that. And then Paige is back at home and she's just, you know, you can tell she's got a lot on her mind, you know. Then the son comes and is like, Mom, somebody's at the door. And then when they go answer the door, it's the dad. And the dad is like, look, if I'm trying to be different, I gotta do different. Basically, he's like, he wants to live with her. And you could tell she's conflicted. You can tell she's deciding what to do. And then the son opens the door and says, hey, grandpa. So it looks like the son has already decided to accept him, and he's like, hey. So that's the end of episode 1. I will have to say, I really do like it. I think there's a lot of layers. I'm interested to see how the dad is going to transition into society. I'm curious to see how Paige and the dad are going to repair their relationship. I'm curious to see how the trauma has affected Paige and also in her personal relationships. And I'm curious to see how the dad and the son's relationship is going to evolve. I'm excited. I might be late to the game, but I'm excited to review. And I will say this, she's very transparent as a therapist, and nowadays the tides are changing with therapists. It's in our code of ethics that we are transparent if we feel it's going to be helpful to the client, right? So this is something that for me as a therapist, I still struggle with. Like, for example, in my postpartum group, I'm very transparent with my moms because I feel like that's helpful to them. But I don't believe in being transparent with every single client, because you don't want to develop a relationship with your therapist where now you're feeling sorry for the therapist and you're thinking more about the therapist than the other way around. So I think it's interesting with social media and like therapists having social media, such as myself, is that the transparency is a lot more than before. I still go with the old school of thought, which is be transparent if you feel like it's going to be helpful. But it sounds like she's got a whole social media presence, and that's like her thing, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I'm assuming that she's using her life story to educate and help others, which there's nothing wrong with. So it's on Hulu. It's 8 episodes, and I'm curious to see how everything evolves. Have you watched Unprisoned? Let me know. What are your thoughts? Don't give me any spoiler alerts, because like I said, I'm just starting. But so far, I'm excited about it. So to my clients that recommended it, that I watch it, I'm watching it. All right, take care. Oh, please like and subscribe. I appreciate all your support, and I will see you soon. Bye.